part of my vision about managing one's career is I put a camera in people's hands and I have them become a filmmaker, not to become the next, Spike Lee or Quentin Tarantino, but to really understand the business. You have to understand it from the inside, so that if you understand storytelling, because acting is storytelling, so an actor needs to understand storytelling from editing, from writing, from understanding the structure of what this character's responsibility is in this film. What's your job? Are you the protagonist? Are you the antagonist? Are you the stakes character? Are you the deflector? I talk about John Goodman in one of the questions that you asked me. John Goodman is the greatest believer of all. Every character he plays, or the majority of them, are believers. Right. And so he's like fighting and leading the cause to help this person, like with
Big Lebowski.
That and The Flight with Denzel.
Oh yeah.
He was the believer in that, and he advocated. No one advocates stronger than him. So these roles, he just fills that believer up with so much that you're carried along in his belief. So
it's such an interesting observation. I'm thinking also Argo.
Yeah. He gets cast as that because he's great at that. You know what I mean? Some people are great at playing certain parts. And so therefore, actors need to know what their job is. They need to know in terms of writing. As you know, one of my classes, because we called you to come in and to advise us on the road that we were going down with this script. It is all based upon your structure and your teaching. And the whole year was looking and feeding it through contour and asking those questions. And I mean, every part of it. And so therefore, when we're teaching acting through your writing techniques, and it helps tremendously because you're storytellers. So what's your responsibility in the story? What's the story about? And with that additional clarity, they become better actors.
The famous story about Streetcar Named Desire, where I can't remember the name of the actor, but at the very end of the play, two guys come in white coats to carte blanche off to the asylum, right? And so you gotta remember, these guys show up. The play is 3 hours long, right? These actors, I think I don't even know if one of them has a line. I don't know if either of them have a line or not. But anyway, they're sitting backstage for 3 hours in their white coats, waiting to come on in the last 30 seconds or so, of the play. And the story is told, I don't know if it's apocryphal, of one of the guys who's cast as the orderly is asked by his mother about the play. He's like, "Hey, Mom, I've been cast in a Broadway play," and she goes, "Oh, that's great. What's your part? What's the play about?" And he goes, "Oh, it's about these guys who take a woman to an insane asylum," right? And so that's all I know about this story. But I would like to believe that the guy actually did know what the play was about. But in his mind, it's the old, there are no small parts, only small actors.
Exactly.
In his mind, he's the star of his story.
Listen, I'm always reminded that Beatrice Straight was in Network, and she might have been on screen 3 minutes, and she won the Academy Award as the wife of the CEO or the network head.
Oh, Ned Beatty.
Not Ned Beatty.
No.
Who had the affair with
is that William Holden?
I think it might have been William Holden.
Okay.
But she was the wife who was cheated on, and she just had that one scene, and she won the Academy Award. So there are no small parts.
I know I asked you when we were prepping for all this about Inglorious Basterds.
Yeah.
And there's the pub scene. So just the setup for, and people could search for this on YouTube. It's a 14 or 15 minute scene.
Right.
Brilliant directing, brilliant acting, and obviously it's Tarantino, so the writing is also brilliant. We use that word a lot around here, brilliant. That's a brilliant outfit, by the way.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to bring some color and light.
You certainly did. But
and by the way, this is my daughter's creation. This is Ivy Park. Maybe I shouldn't.
No, that's fine.
Ivy Park. Go out and get it. It's, Adidas.
That's right. We're looking for sponsors for the podcast. But the I forgot what it's called. Oh, Inglorious Basterds. But the thing. It's actually kind of interesting because I said this to you before when the camera started rolling, that I look at that scene, the pub scene, as a magic trick. And you looked at me like, really? That's like, I wouldn't even know how to write that scene. You're like, really? So it's fascinating to me that I find it so overwhelming to try to imagine how you got all that on camera. So like the things, an example that in that scene, right? So the setup is Brad Pitt and Michael, Brad Pitt's actually not in that scene. He sent these people in, but it's Michael Fassbinder and Till Schweiger. And I forget the other guy who's with them, but he's down there. Too. And von Hammerschmark, the German actress. And the scene is, until the very end, is all in German. And there's a group of drunk German soldiers at one table, like enlisted soldiers or not non-officers, and they're all disguised as officers meeting with Bridget von Hammerschmark. And one of the drunk soldiers comes over, and I think it's because he recognizes Bridget von Hammerschmark, who's like,
he recognizes Fraulein.
Yeah, the Fraulein, right. And he's so drunk he doesn't realize that he's actually, it's an infraction. He's like sitting at came to an officer's table, and Fassbinder needs to get rid of him and like loses his temper and is yelling at him. But the thing that was fascinating to me is this drunk soldier is just like staring at Fassbinder, and you're thinking that he's so drunk he's being like drawn and quartered by this German officer, by Fassbinder. But what he's really thinking is, what's with this accent?
Right, exactly.
Right. So I'm trying to think, like, as a writer, like I would be afraid to put all that, Max is, I guess, the kid who's one, I forget the sergeant's name. He's like a new dad. They're all there celebrating because he's a new father. And the German soldiers listening intently, we think he's doing this, but we think he's reacting to being yelled at, but he's actually pondering the source of this accent. I would be afraid to put that in the script as a writer because I would think that I'm somehow steering the actor too specifically, yet that's what it's about. I can imagine that also having been played, that he's sitting there and it's like, German soldier is initially upset, that being yelled at, but somehow through his drunken haze, he realizes there's something a little bit off about. So maybe I would write that.
I think that detail is important. And so then the question becomes whether that can be acted without highlights, without highlighting it, and whether the actor can deliver the intention, because that moment sets up the whole rest of the scene, and it is the first thing to challenge the believability of their cover. German uniforms, German accents, and with the appearance of celebration, when it's really just a moment of planning for the assassination of Hitler the following day, I believe. And so that scene has a series of chapter changes, as I will call them. Writers refer to them as beats, and no one has ever been able to explain to me what a beat is, or what's the substance of a beat. Is it a beat where you just take a moment and then move to something else? Or is it a chapter change that is a series of knit one, purl two in terms of this gradient of tension building to climax? And so therefore, that moment is key because it sets up a series of other moments of tension notching moments that the scene gets more and more dangerous, where our little group is in more and more peril. And so the way that Quentin Tarantino wrote it brilliantly, he graduated the sense of tension till the point to where when it was at its max, now we're at a stalemate here. The next move, the game blows up. Right. So who's going to make the next move? And then the character who is the greatest, hair trigger because of, again, his past and all the things he suffered along the way, takes it to the next level in a matter of seconds.
That's the major in the other room.
No, the major in the other room graduated it before that, and I jumped past him, but because he's part of the gradient of change, even to the challenge when Fassbender says, "Look, you are intruding." Yeah. All due respect, right. You're intruding.
I remember watching that scene and going, "Oh my God, this guy's a psycho. What's he gonna do?" Yeah. See, and that's there's a series of oh shit, right, moments. There's probably about 7 or 8 of them where we say, oh, shit. Just in that one 15-minute
sequence. One in that 15-minute scene, it kept graduating. Right. Stakes kept getting higher and higher and higher until we're at a point where what's going to happen? Right. And so the way it's played and the way that he dealt with, about being the Scotch. And so what are we going to do? What are you going to do? What are we going to do? And he says, well, since we seem to be on that road and since this seems to be the little final moments of my life, I might as well enjoy this good 17-year-old Scotch. He says, there's nothing good, nothing better. Right. Now what? And then the guy pulls the trigger and then it explodes. And in a matter of, it took 15 minutes to get there and it took 20 seconds for everybody to die. Right. Which was a brilliant series of chapter changes. Mm-hmm. And these actors fulfilling their assignments in terms of their what's the word I'm looking for? Their oh God, I can't think of the word. Archetypes. Mm-hmm. If we look at the roles that they're filling, so it was brilliantly written and brilliantly directed. And the thing that makes that such a powerful scene is that the one thing I think Quentin Tarantino has is the sense of patience. Good music has space so you can hear all the instrumentation. When it gets so cluttered, it's kind of like rock music, you know what I mean? Where you can't hear the parts. But in great music, there's space. And he directed a sense of space so that the shoe would fall and everybody would sit and say, well, what do we do now? And it would sit there before anything happened, each time, each gradient. And so he directed it brilliantly, he wrote it brilliantly, and he allowed the scene to breathe, which created the tension.